All right, guys, today we're going to be talking about Unholy Death Knight in the new Midnight expansion. And guys, we made it. We're finally here. We are walking through Silvermoon with our Scourge army for the second time. And in this video, I'm going to give you guys everything that you need in order to feel very comfortable walking into a raid, walking into a dungeon, to be the absolute monster that Unholy is. And if anything changes, because we know we're getting tuning on March 17th, I will make an update guide, or I will either just post a pinned comment depending on the level of changes. So don't worry, I've got you covered. I was going to wait to do this, but I know people are excited and people want to try it out, and I caved in, so I'm making the guide a little early, but I want you guys to have fun. So here we are. Now, before I get into the stats, the gearing, the hero talents, the crafting, all that stuff, I need to talk a little bit about the class flavor, because Death Knight is so cool, man. Death Knight is so cool. Unholy Death Knight is unbelievably cool because you are a necromancer. You can raise the dead. You can raise ghouls, you can raise abominations, you can raise gargoyles, you can raise skeletal mages. Like, you can raise your own personal army and do damage and shoot shadow magic from range. But by yourself, you're also you're not the traditional necromancer that is like in a robe sitting in the back. You are in full plate Serenite armor with a big ass rune blade. I mean, like, for those of you that don't know, Death Knights were skilled fighters or paladins or warriors that died in combat, and the Lich King was like, "Ooh, this guy's got some zip to him." So he juiced you up with so much death magic, raised you from the dead, and gave you armor made of Serenite, which is forged with the old god's blood, which makes mortals go crazy, by the way, by being anywhere near it. And then gave you a rune blade with death runes on it that can cast different abilities, like raising the dead. I mean, whoa. like it is so cool. So when you walk in to a dungeon or a raid, it feels really badass because you by yourself you're a pretty cool character. But when you raise your hands and the entirety of the north beyond the wall stands up to fight with you, it's pretty cool. So if you guys want to enjoy this and want to get that feeling of Unholy, I'm going to go through everything you need in order to really enjoy the spec. All right, guys, and I'm going to do stuff a little bit weird because I'm going to start with the rotation so that when we go into the talents, you have a bit of an understanding on how things work and why we'd make some changes. So first things first, Unholy Death Knight has, like every other Death Knight specialization, has a dual resource system. What does this mean? Unholy Death Knight has runes, which are these little circles right here, those skulls, and this blue power bar called Runic Power. Some abilities cost runes, some abilities cost Runic Power. So when you spend your runes, you generate the Runic Power. When you spend the Runic Power, you refresh your runes. So it kind of works together. You spend one, you get the other, you spend the other, you get the one. It works together. So you're going to have three main abilities that are going to cost runes. Those abilities are Festering Strike, which is a melee ability. You press it, and it gives you this buff right here. Your next few Scourge Strikes will summon a lesser ghoul. So now when I press Scourge Strike, which is a ranged ability, I summon these little ghouls, which are really cool. They start, you can see they're chomping on the target. Very, very neat. So the core rotation of that, again, is you press Festering Strike to get the buff, and then you press Scourge Strike to summon ghouls to hit the target. You never want to be pressing Scourge Strike without the buff, so you want to make sure that you are always using Festering Strike before Scourge Strike. Now, there is a cap of this, okay? So the cap of this is 8. So if you get up to 8, you don't want to press Festering Strike anymore. You want to get it as high as you can because it costs 2 runes, and it kind of gimps your resources. So you get to 8, and then you use that to spend your Scourge Strike, and that gets you all these little ghouls hitting the target. Okay. Now the next ability that costs runes is Putrefy. Putrefy summons a ghoul and throws it at the target. They blow up for shadow damage. I'll do it again. Summons a ghoul, launches the target, blows up for shadow damage. Pretty neat. So you have the ability to summon the ghouls, and you have the ability to launch them at the target for shadow damage. Putrefy, the shadow damage explosion, does a bunch of damage. It's a really satisfying button. I mean, it looks cool. It sounds cool. It's pretty neat. Now you'll notice we have a pretty big blue power bar here. Our runic power is filled up. By spending the runes, we've gotten a bunch of runic power. So now we spend our runic power on, in single target, Death Coil, which is this sort of like shadow bolt ability, which is pretty cool. And in AoE, you use this ability, Epidemic. Epidemic will hit every single target with a disease on them. I'll talk about diseases in a second. So let me just cover what we've done so far. So Festering Strike to gain Scourge Strike stacks, the Scourge Strike buff. You press Scourge Strike to summon the ghouls. Use Putrefy to throw ghouls at them for a bunch of damage. And then you spend your runic power on either Death Coil or Epidemic. Death Coil when there's 1 to 3 targets, and then Epidemic over that. If you have a bunch of targets, you want a Death Coil. Or you want an Epidemic, sorry. Okay, so that's the core of it. Now, Unholy isn't just about this core pet summoning rotation. Unholy is also a bringer of disease. It is a Nurgle from Warhammer, right? You have cool diseases that you can throw on the target as well. So one disease that you have is Virulent Plague, which does damage over time and can be applied through this ability, Outbreak. So Outbreak applies your diseases. See, the Virulent Plague is just ticking away. It's that green one. Does good damage, and you can throw it on a bunch of targets. So if we throw it on a bunch of targets over here, see how it's on all of them. And now when we hit Epidemic, it hits everybody with the plague on them. So press it, hits all of them. See? Hits all of them. Very cool. Now, you also have another plague that can only be on one person at a time, and that's this like orangish red one. Dread Plague. Dread Plague does a bunch of damage, but it also gives you these procs. You see these little green lines popping up on my screen? So these procs make it so that your next Epidemic or Death Coil will summon a ghoul. So when I press it, it summons a ghoul. Very cool. So your priority is going to be using Festering Strike to summon the ghouls, maintaining your diseases on the target because that one gives you the procs, right? So that one gives you procs. You want to make sure that's always up. And it gives you these procs of Death Coil or Epidemic. When you press it, it'll summon more ghouls. So your priority is keeping diseases up, summoning your minions, launching them at the target, and then pressing your procs to get your runes back. And that's the core of the rotation. Now, we've done that so far, right? Okay. We're going to dive a little bit deeper. Okay. So we're going to start diving into the nuance. That's the basic. Okay. Now, whenever you press Festering Strike, you get this ability called Festering Scythe. it upgrades. Whenever you use it, it upgrades into this Festering Scythe. Festering Scythe is an AoE. It hits all the targets in front of you, gives you more of the buff, and it makes all of your plagues deal their damage 35% faster. So all the plagues on the target, when he's got that Festering Scythe debuff on him, they're ticking 35% faster. So this means it's doing more damage, but also every time Dread Plague ticks, you get a chance to get these procs, right? See how fast I'm getting those procs back? I'm getting those procs back so fast because the diseases are ticking faster with the Festering Scythe buff, right? So put the diseases on the target, you put the Festering Scythe debuff on them, and that way you're getting these procs back super fast, right? Because the Dread Plague is ticking and it's giving you the procs. So it all kind of comes together like that. All right, that is the core of your rotation, with a little bit of nuance with the Festering Scythe. So if you want to make sure, so for me, like I don't like having to look up here, right, and look at my stacks, and I don't really want to be looking at my action bar all that much. So as you can see, I track my buff right here. How I'm doing that is I go to gameplay enhancements, cooldown manager, advanced cooldown settings, and I removed everything besides the buffs that I really just need to see right there, which is the Lesser Ghoul one. And then I put it right here, so it's very obvious for me. So just a little trick for you. Okay. Now we're going to talk about offensive and defensive abilities. So you have your main offensive ability, which is so cool. Army of the Dead. One of the coolest abilities in the entire game. When I press it, I mean, it's beautiful. Watch this. Army of the Dead. It's on a 1.5 minute cooldown. You press it, and you summon an army of ghouls. Unbelievably cool. So cool. Now, that's pretty simple. It's just gonna summon all of these pets and all of these ghouls. Now, you have another ability called Dark Transformation. What Dark Transformation does is when you press it, it upgrades your pet into a dark monstrosity, and it buffs all of your other ghouls by 30%. So this is a really good ability. Your little guy is going to start cranking, and it buffs all of your pets. So you want to make sure that you are using Army of the Dead and Dark Transformation together. Dark Transformation is a 45-second cooldown. Army of the Dead is a 1.5 minutes. So you'll have one Dark Transformation that you can use in between each army. So you press Army and Dark Transformation, and then you'll press Dark Transformation, then you press Army and Dark Transformation. You get it. 45 seconds in a 1.5 minutes. Hopefully we don't have to explain that too much. But that is how that works. Those are your main offensive abilities. So when you run into a pack of mobs, it's going to look something like this. You're going to press your Army of the Dead, your Dark Transformation. You're going to be applying your debuff to all of them, your diseases on all of them. And then you're going to be summoning your ghouls, spending your procs, right? And that's all it's about. It's pretty cool. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the defensives, and then we're going to get into the talents, because that's really what I really want to cover, a lot of the nuances with the talents. So, you have, for defensives, you have an ability called Death Strike. Death Strike heals you for a percentage of your damage taken, and a minimum of a percentage of your maximum health. So it costs runic power. You really don't want to use it. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but if you're stuck or you're getting hit and your tank, let a mob past him or something and it's hitting you, it's something to keep you alive. You also have anti-magic shell, which when you press it gives you a shell around you, and it's an absorb shield against magic damage, and nobody can apply any harmful magic effects to you while it's active. So the diseases that we put on targets, these are magical effects, harmful magical effects. If you have anti-magic shell active, someone, a mob in a dungeon or something, can't put that effect on you. So it's a really, really strong ability. You kind of want to use it, like if you're doing Mythic Plus, dude, send it every single pull. Like every time you walk into a pack, just press it. Your healer's gonna look at you and go, "I like that guy. I like that guy. He's he's paying attention." Use it every chance you get. It's a great ability. You also have Icebound Fortitude, which when you press it, it gives you a 30% wall and makes you immune to stuns. You can use it to break out of stuns, which is really good. Lichborn can make it so you are immune to charm, fear, and sleeps. It can take you out of charms, fear, and sleeps. And it gives you a little bit of leech. Leech it's not that big of a deal. But it's really nice if you get feared to be able to get out of that fear immediately. And you also have Anti-Magic Zone. Anti-Magic Zone is an ability that you can put down, and it will protect your entire team from magic damage. It's a 15% wall against magic damage. So if there's a lot of damage coming out, a lot of damage in this game is magic damage. So it's really helpful for your team. Sorry, I've been talking a lot. I apologize. So those are your major offensives and defensives. Now, as a Death Knight, you also have a responsibility because you don't have a raid buff. So the things that you have are, one, being very tanky. This is a massive responsibility because you have great defensives. You have great ways to stay alive, what we just mentioned. Use them. You are the person that is supposed to be the anchor for the group. You're supposed to be sturdy. You're supposed to stay alive. Use your abilities, stay alive. Press your defensives. Number one. Number two is you have Death Grip. What Death Grip is when you're fighting this pack of mobs right here, right? You're hitting them, you've got your diseases on them, you're having fun. There's an archer or a caster, like a sorcerer over here. Use your Death Grip to grip that target in with everybody else. And I know you're thinking, you're like, I don't want to take the time to go and grip that guy and bring him over. It's your job. It is your job to do that, because the faster you kill everybody together, the faster you guys get to keep going in the dungeon. So make sure you are gripping people in to a big pile. It's going to let you do more damage because they're all together. It is your responsibility to do that. Now, all right, we've talked about the rotation. We've talked about the offensives, the defensives, the utility. Now we're going to talk a bit about talents. So I'm going to have import codes for all of these talents, okay? But I want to actually spend some time on them. So if you just don't care and you just want the import codes, go right now, check the description. You're going to have the best codes for Raid, Mythic Plus, all of that. But if you care about the interactions and you want to learn a bit about it, I've got you covered. So right here we have, whoops, we're in combat. Tell my pets to stop attacking. Okay, so we have, he's still, that one's still angry at me if you're trying to grip him in. All right, so we have some choice nodes and some stuff I'm going to talk about in the main tree, and then I'm going to spend a lot more time in the actual Unholy tree. So in the main tree, we have Wraithwalk and March of Darkness as a choice node. March of Darkness is good. It increases the speed of your Death's Advance, but you don't really need it. Wraithwalk is another speed increasing effect, and it breaks roots. I just think it's really good. I personally think it's better. Go with Wraithwalk. Death Pact is awful. Look, there's gonna be, I know there's gonna be the person in the comments who's like, oh, but there's this niche time that like one time Jupiter was rising and the moon was like, that it saved me. It does. I don't care. Death Pact is, it heals you, but it adds a healing absorb to you. So all you're doing is pissing off your healer. Don't take this ability. It's not good. You're trolling your healer. It's not nice. Don't do it. Don't use this. Now, assimilation. This one, a lot of people are going to kind of expect that you run it as Death Knight. What it does is it reduces the cooldown of anti-magic zone. So for a lot of the raid fights, they expect you to kind of be using anti-magic zone at certain times. And I'll make another video where I go through like an actual raid fight when the raid comes out and tell you where to use stuff. But you kind of want this. People kind of expect you run this. Another choice node we have is Asphyxiate and Death's Reach. Asphyxiate is a stun, which is really good. We'll talk about it more in the PvP guide because you're going to use it in PvP. But in PvE, you want to be taking the extra grip range because, again, you kind of owe it to your team to be gripping in those mobs, and this is really helpful for not having to move too much in order to do it. So it makes your life easier, makes your team's life easier. It's just good. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of sauce with Will of the Necropolis. Blizzard, don't nerf this because I'm giving away secrets. But damage taken below 30% health is reduced by 35%. It's pretty good. A little key with this, a little trick, is that it is not just damage taken below 30% health. It is any hit that would take you below 30% health as well. So if you get hit by a massive hit that takes you to 29% health, right, and you were at 50% health, that gets the 35% reduction. So this is a really, really good talent. You want this, always. Death's Echo is very good because it's an extra grip. I mean, this is mandatory stuff here. Unyielding Will, Anti-Magic Shell now removes all harmful magical effects, but its cooldown is increased by 20 seconds. Don't take this. Anti-Magic Shell being 40 seconds is fantastic. Use it before you enter a pull, and you'll never ever need this talent because it prevents the harmful things from being applied. So if you use it as you walk into a pack of mobs, you never need to get rid of the harmful effects because they never got applied in the first place. So don't use this talent. Null Magic, fantastic. Magic damage taken is reduced. It's just good. it's very good. And Vestigial Shell, you can take this if you want to. You can do something like this, give up some leech if you want to help your teammates out a little bit. It doesn't have this little extra anti-magic shell that it gives to your teammates. Doesn't have the same preventative effect. It's just kind of an absorb shield. But I prefer the leech because if you do a lot of damage and you're healing yourself more, I try and do everything I can for my healers. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Unholy Tree. And what we're looking at right now is the raid build. Okay, so we're looking at the raid build. And there's some unique stuff in the raid build that I'm going to go back to the target dummy and I'm going to show you. So, all right, this is where we're going to start getting into it, guys. So, first things first, let's talk about some of the choice nodes here. So we have Grave Mastery and Plague Mastery. So Plague Mastery increases the critical damage of your diseases. Critical strike damage of your minions increased by 15% is the other one. This just does more damage. It's just better. Maybe eventually, if we ever go Plague Mastery, we're going to go down this side of the tree, which is more disease focused. This side of the tree is more pet focused, but they all kind of work together. So you're never like truly picking one or the other. It's just like which one you're leaning more into, which is, I mean, fantastic design of Blizzard. They did a good job on that. We have Raise Abomination and Summon Gargoyle as a choice node. So this one, look, I know this is a guide, but Blizzard, if you're watching the guide to figure out what people think about your spec, I'm going to give a little bit of constructive criticism to you. So Raise Abomination summons a big abomination, which has a disease cloud, and that makes people take 30% more, or sorry, 10% more damage from your minions, and he does a good bit of damage. If you choose Summon Gargoyle, it summons a gargoyle who starts striking your target, and it does okay damage, but there's no niche for these. So you're kind of just picking whichever one does more damage. Raise Abomination just does more damage. He does more damage in AoE, he does more damage in single target. He just does more damage. So maybe in the March 17th tuning, there's going to be an update. I'll let you know if there is. But right now, Raise Abomination is just better in all scenarios. I hope that at some point Summon Gargoyle gets like, that ends up being the single target one, and then Raise Abomination's the AoE one. So there's a bit of a choice, but choice right now is just he just does more damage, so you pick him every time. Now, we're going to talk about some more of the talents, and then I'm going to show you something on the target dummy. So we have Reanimation. Reanimation is so cool, man. Reanimation is whenever you use Putrefy, which is this ability here, the one where you launch the ghoul at the target and it blows up. When that ghoul dies, it summons a skeletal mage, which starts shooting shadow bolts and frost bolts at your target. Very, very cool. So whenever you're using this ability, you're summoning one of the skeletal mages. Pretty sweet. Now, this synergizes really well with our Apex. Guys, I like our Apex talents. People had initial concerns. They went to Blizzard and they said, hey, I don't know about all this. Blizzard made some good changes, and it's pretty sweet, especially the last one. So let's talk about it. So our Apex talents are whenever you press Army of the Dead, your Death Coil and your Epidemic are going to upgrade. So your Death Coil is going to turn into Necrotic Coil, and your Epidemic is going to turn into Graveyard. These do extra damage, so it's just a flat. It does more damage, which is awesome. But the change is really significant for Necrotic Coil. And I'll show you 2 reasons why. So let me put my pets on passive so it's a bit more clean to look at. So when I press Army of the Dead, see how it upgrades these abilities here? Necrotic Coil, Graveyard. Necrotic Coil shoots through the target. So let me show you that again. Shoots through the target. They gave you armor piercing rounds, man. If there's people sitting behind that guy, it hits them too. So this means that Necrotic Coil has some cleave effect to it. And when you have a big pack of mobs like this, right, when you're engaging this big pack of mobs, maybe instead of standing right here, you go and you stand right here. So it shoots through them. Does that make sense? So a little bit of a trick. It upgrades those abilities and they do more damage. It also, for people who are just getting into Death Knight, maybe this doesn't matter to you as much, but especially when we start talking PvP, when I make that guide. It does physical, Necrotic Coil does physical and shadow damage, which is amazing. Very, very cool. It means that you can hit people who like mages very hard. So this is fantastic. Now, the bottom part of your Apex talents, besides upgrading these abilities, the big part and what it's going to do is that your Dread Plague is going to have a random chance to putrefy a ghoul. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Just wait for it. Come on, Blizzard. They know I'm recording this. They're like, no, we're not going to show it. Give it a second. There we go. Okay. So it putrefies the ghouls. So just having the Dread Plague on a target has a chance to putrefy a ghoul. And because we're running reanimation, it synergizes with the Apex talent, because every time that a ghoul gets putrefied, so they launch to the target, just happened right there, we get one of the mages. So we're just passively getting the mages, which is fantastic. It's so cool. I mean, it's really cool to just be like you feel really like a necromancer, because you can get a lot of those mages going next to you, firing off their shadow bolts and their frost bolts. Okay. I'm going to show you one more thing with the raid talent build, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Mythic Plus and hero talents. So for the raid build, you also have Soul Reaper. So Soul Reaper is an execute ability. So anybody on 35% health or less, you can apply this to, and it is going to make them take 20% increased damage from your diseases and minions, which is most of your damage. So it is a massive, massive execute ability. Whenever you get a target low, you want to be using Soul Reaper. Also, every time you press Dark Transformation, you have the ability to use Soul Reaper regardless of the target's health. So whenever you're bursting, that means that you can always get a 20% damage amp on the target during your burst window of all of your ghouls, right? Because it makes the target take 20% increased damage from your minions, and you can use it at the same time that you're buffing all of your minions. Do you see the sauce coming together, guys? Right? Not only, this is like, oh my god, it's so cool. Not only can you summon all of your ghouls, buff all of your, so you summon all of your ghouls with Army of the Dead. You buff all of your ghouls with Dark Transformation. You put the debuff on the target to make the target take increased damage from your minions with Soul Reaper. But Soul Reaper also automatically casts both of your putrefied charges at the target, which summons your mages who are being buffed by your Dark Transformation ghoul. Do you see the magic happening? Okay, so I know that there's going to be a question about that, and I'm going to answer it right now. So the question that gets asked a lot is, okay, if Dark Transformation, right, when I press Dark Transformation and I press Soul Reaper, if it automatically sends my Putrefy at the target, do I want to be saving up all of my Putrefies for Dark Transformation? Because, by the way, Soul Reaper doesn't just buff your pets, it also buffs the damage of your Putrefy. So if I have a target that's below 35% and I hit him with the Putrefy, that Putrefy is buffed, and so is the mage hitting the target. So that's a lot of damage. So the question that gets asked all the time is, do I save all of my Putrefy charges for when I Dark Transform? And the answer is kind of. No, not really. It's complicated. So when you have, in between Dark Transformation, you are going to have extra Putrefy charges. If you save up all of your Putrefy charges, because there's a little bit of cooldown reduction on Putrefy. See when I spend the runes, Scourge Strike? See how there's like a cooldown reduction there? So if you're doing your normal rotation, you're gonna have you're gonna have 2 Putrefys before your Dark Transformation comes back up, like much before. So the rule of thumb is that what you want to do is you want to, in between, let's use it. Use Scourge Strike, we'll get some cooldown reduction. Is you want to press Putrefy when you have some extra ones. Okay, so like you never want to overcap on Putrefy. You never want to be sitting at 2 unless Dark Transformation is coming back off cooldown in the next like 10 seconds. All right, so it's kind of one where you got to use your brain a little. I wish I could tell you like you always save your Putrefy for Dark Transformation, but that's not true. You're gonna have them in between your Dark Transformation. It's a 45-second cooldown, and you're gonna have more than 2 that you're gonna get in between. So my recommendation is as soon as you get 2, send it, unless you have Dark Transformation coming back off cooldown in the next couple seconds. Okay, hopefully that's simple enough for everybody. So if you reach 2, we're about to. I can't keep, like starting to get my next one. So I'm overcapping right now, meaning I'm not getting any value from it coming back in a couple seconds. So you send it unless Dark Transformation is coming back off cooldown in the next second or so. Okay, I know I spent a lot of time on that, but that's a really common question that you get for Unholy. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the Mythic Plus build and how that changes things, and we'll talk about hero talents. So for Mythic Plus, we're going to have 2 main changes. Now, you can either do this build right here, or you can do this. And I'm going to explain the differences and let you pick, because they're both totally viable. So, this build, what we've done is we've put a point into this Menacing Magus, which means your Magus of the Dead, those little skeleton mages. They fire shadow bolts up to 8 nearby enemies. So what it does is it makes those little mages have more cleave. And because you're summoning so many of them in Mythic Plus, if they're all hitting 8 targets each, it's pretty good because you're having extra cleave damage on a big group of mobs. So this is a really good talent in Mythic Plus because it gives you some extra cleave with your mages. Now, we also have this ability called Blight Burst. What Blight Burst does is it makes it so that whenever you use Putrefy, it applies your diseases to the target. And it extends the diseases as well. Not only does this apply to the Putrefys that you cast, but you'll see in a second, it also applies to the random proc Putrefys that you get as well from your Apex talent, if one ever happens. They happen so often. I don't know what's going on today. Maybe it's because my pets are on passive. I forgot they made that change. So, see, the little random proc ones apply it as well. Now, that is a really good talent in Mythic Plus because it ensures that you're not having to use Outbreak all the time your diseases are kind of just always going to be on the targets because you're using so many putrefies. So you're never really having to use Outbreak in Mythic Plus. This is really, really convenient, nice ability. I kind of wish it was baseline. It's a very, very, very smooth ability to use. Now, you have two other options. You have Soul Reaper, which we saw what that did, and why this is really good in Mythic Plus is in Mythic Plus, there's going to be, in a big group of mobs, you're going to have one that's really strong. In any group of mobs, you're going to have, maybe they're a caster, maybe they're just, big and hit hard, and you need to kill them very fast. So having Soul Reaper is really nice because you can burn down that priority ad really fast, because you can throw that 20% damage taken debuff on the target and you can dispatch them pretty quickly. So this is nice to have, and it's nice to have especially for the boss fights in Mythic Plus, because it's not just about the ads. You do have bosses that you have to take down, but you also have this choice, and that's Unholy Aura. So Unholy Aura makes it so that each Magus of the Dead under your command grants you haste. Now, you're going to have a lot of Magus of the Dead because of your Apex talent, and you know that your Magus of the Dead do really well because you put this point in there. But haste is a fantastic stat. All right, and the last thing that I'm going to cover regarding the talents is going to be the hero talents. And so we have two different hero talents for Unholy, and that is Rider of the Apocalypse and Sand Lane. So Rider of the Apocalypse is largely passive. There's some min-max that you can do, but don't worry about it. It is essentially passive. Your abilities have a chance to summon different riders, and these different riders cast different abilities. Some of them have a Death and Decay, some of them have Chains of Ice, some of them apply plagues. It's pretty cool. And the coolest part about it is that you get this ability called Death Charge. This replaces your Death's Advance, and it gives you this little horse. So you can ride around on the horse, which is pretty cool. It's nice to have some mobility. It's nice because it's largely passive, and Unholy has a good bit of stuff going on compared to some other specializations. So Rider of the Apocalypse is pretty fun. Sand Lane was meant to be sort of this vampiric vibe. If you remember Icecrown Citadel with the blood vampire wing, those were Sand Lane. It has some names like Vampiric Strike that sort of fit the class fantasy, but I think that might be one that they missed the mark a little bit on. Either way, Sand Lane is basically has a chance to turn your Scourge Strike into an ability called Vampiric Strike, and Vampiric Strike gives you a stacking buff that increases the damage of your Death Coil. So the too long didn't read of Sand Lane is that when you get Vampiric Strike, you want to use it so that you get the stacking buff for Death Coil and Epidemic damage, and maintain that buff by continuing to use Vampiric Strike. So every time you get Vampiric Strike, you just want to use it to maintain the buff. Sand Lane is not as good as Rider right now. I personally am happy about this. I like Rider a lot more. But you have the option to play it if you really want to. But the horse is pretty sweet. So we got the horse this time, guys. If tuning happens or anything changes, I will let you know. But that is all you need to know for Rider. For Unholy, and for Unholy. First of all, don't copy my gear. We are just starting out in the expansion. My gear is not perfect. This is like, my gear is bad. This is the season hasn't even started, so don't judge me too hard here. Now, we're going to talk about each one of the stats, and then we'll talk about rune forges and crafting. So, For your stats, critical strike is your best stat. It is your best stat. And there's a couple reasons for this, okay? So number one, and this is why I wanted to go through the rotation and the talents and all of that, so you're going to be able to understand how it all comes together and how you want to gear your character. So critical strike increases the chance for extra effectiveness on attacks and heals. So it increases the chance of your critical strikes. Now, a couple reasons why that's important. Okay, so your Dread Plague, which gives you those Death Coil procs, those Epidemic procs, those procs come from critical strikes with your Dread Plague. So this means that the higher crit you have, the more procs of Death Coil and Epidemic that you're getting. So that's really good. You also have this talent that we talked about, which increases the critical strike damage of your minions by 15%. So more crits means, one, you're getting a smoother rotation because of the procs that you're getting. You're getting more procs. And two, your crits are doing more damage for all of your pets. So this is really good. Crit's really, really good. And next we're going to talk about haste. Haste is a bit of an underrated stat. And how this works is haste increases your attack speed and your rune regeneration. So this makes it so that you attack faster, your runes regenerate faster, and there's a thing called global cooldown. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So when I go and I hit this guy, right? I'm going to hit this guy. See how there's like that little circle that goes around the ability before I can use it again? The faster your haste is, the faster you can do that. So haste also increases that. It's called the global cooldown. But haste does something else that's special. Haste increases not just your attack speed, but it increases all of your pets' attack speeds. And you saw you have a lot of pets. So haste is also a really, really good stat. Crit is still better, but haste is very good. Now we've talked about two really good stats for us, right? Crit and haste. Now we talk about mastery. Mastery is really good too. So mastery is the Dread Blade. Increases the damage of your minions and shadow damage abilities. And it increases the critical strike damage of your minions and diseases. So hang on. Not only does it increase the damage of your minions and your shadow abilities, which is all of your abilities, but it increases the critical strike damage of them. So if they critically strike more, they do more damage, and then I know that they have this buff from critical strike damage, and then I know that I am getting the crits from Dread Plague to get the prop. It's all coming together. So all of these stats are very, very good. You like all of them, but there is an order. There is an order to things, okay? Unfortunately, it does break down to numbers, but the stat order for you is critical strike is the best, mastery is second, haste is third. This does not mean, and the reason why I want to be clear on this and explain why each of them matters is because I don't want you guys to look at some post somewhere and say, oh, critical strike is the best stat. I need to get all critical strike for Unholy. Well, no, because if you went all critical strike for Unholy, you wouldn't be getting the critical strike damage buff from your mastery. And also, if you don't have haste, your pets aren't gonna get many attacks off. So like, you're not gonna do the damage you want to do. You need a mix of all three. You just want that mix to be leaning crit, mastery, haste. You need all of them, but you want mostly crit, mastery, and then haste, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I know I spent a lot of time on that, but I want you guys to understand all the stats are good. They're just good for different reasons, and you want to mix. Okay. Now we're going to talk about your rune forge. Every Death Knight needs a rune weapon, and we have some options now. Traditionally, we ran Fallen Crusader. Fallen Crusader gives a chance to heal you for 4% of your maximum health. Cool. And a chance to increase your total strength by 18% for 15 seconds. Damn, that is a lot of damage. 18% is your strength, by the way. Your best stat by far. That comes with item level. And no matter what, if you get a piece of gear that has more strength on it, but has all haste, you're taking it because strength is the best. So, Fallen Crusader's really good. But we got to change this season. We got something cool, and that is Rune of Apocalypse. Rune of Apocalypse makes it so that your ghoul's attacks have a chance to apply one of the following debuffs to the target. A healing reduction, increased damage taken from the Death Knight, reduced damage dealt to the Death Knight, and a slow to the target that deals damage over time. This, now with all of our pets, is actually our best rune forge. Unholy used to run Fallen Crusader because we didn't have enough pets to maintain the debuffs with Rune of the Apocalypse, but now this and Midnight with all the Unholy changes, we have enough pets that Rune of the Apocalypse actually does the most damage. We can maintain that debuff. But because it requires your pets to attack, so Rune of the Fallen Crusader makes it so that you have a chance to give this strength buff to yourself. Rune of the Apocalypse is your pets apply that debuff. This means that you have to be on it with your rotation, and you have to be summoning your ghouls and making sure they're hitting the target to apply those debuffs. Which I think is pretty good because it rewards good gameplay. So Rune of the Apocalypse is the best rune forge that you can use for Unholy. There we go. Now we're going to talk about your crafting. What do you craft for Unholy? What is going to be your crafting for the season? So here's what you're going to do. You are going to craft, to start out with, your wrist and your weapon. You are going to craft your wrist with the embellishment Arcana Weave. You are going to craft your weapon with the embellishment Darkmoon Hunt. Now, why are you crafting these? So, crafted items have less total item level than a fully upgraded Mythic piece. But what don't you have at the start of the season? Mythic gear. So you are getting your weapon to give you a bit of an edge at the beginning of the season. And then what you're going to do is eventually when you get a Mythic weapon, you are going to swap that with your crafted weapon. And then you're going to craft a back piece with Arcana Weave. Because their crafted gear is good because the embellishments are good, but you still lose stats compared to a Mythic piece. So you kind of want to put them on your worst, your weakest pieces of gear, which are your back and your bracers. So let me go through that again so you guys, because I want to make sure people don't craft the wrong things and spend a bunch of gold for no reason. So beginning of the season, you're going to craft wrist with Arcana Weave and weapon with Darkmoon Hunt embellishment. Now, if you get a Mythic weapon somehow, don't craft the weapon. But if you craft the weapon later on in the season, when you get a Mythic weapon, craft your back piece, and start using the mythic weapon instead. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, guys. So I think I have covered everything that I wanted to cover in this video. I know it was really long. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I know it's a long video, but I want to give you guys everything that you need in order to feel confident walking into a dungeon or raid. Some things that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to make a video where I talk about, I actually show you a bit in the raid and in a dungeon when the season starts, so you can see how it plays in action. I'm going to be making a PvP guide for Unholy where I show you guys exactly what you need to do in order to get the PvP transmog and rewards as Death Knight this season, because they're pretty cool. And you know, PvP, I know a lot of people think it's scary. I'll walk you through it. You'll be fine. I'm starting to stream in midnight, so if you guys want, come hang out. It's just me and my friends really messing around on there. Do not sub to me or anything like that. Just save your money. The expansion costs enough. But come hang out. It'd be cool to have people to talk to about Death Knight. So come chill with us. And if you have any questions, I will try to get to as many comments as I can. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and suffer well.